Hello there, race fans, and welcome to round 2 of Season 8 of the ASRC Oval Series. Tonight we are down in Lakeland, Florida for a race at one of the tracks with probably the least amount of history on the iRacing.com platform. This track actually only existed for 13 years from 1995 to 2008, and during that time, just about all they hosted here was late model races. So even if this track does not exist in the real world anymore and does not exist in the real world for a fairly long time now, we can still continue its legacy here on the iRacing.com platform. Like I said, this is round 2 of the ASRC Oval Series, which also holds true for its Road Series and its Dirt Series that runs a concurrent schedule. If you want to come race with ASRC, be sure to check out www.asrcracing.com or at ASRC Racing on Twitter. ASRC hosts a road series every Monday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern with GT3 cars. Half the schedule is two 25-minute endurance races or sprint races back to back, and the other half are 50-minute long endurance races. So, bit of variety over on the road side. And of course, at 9 p.m. Eastern, the session opens up for the Road Series, which is 101 lap late model races. Then on Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, they host the Dirt Series featuring the Pro Late Model. So, if any of that sounds interesting to you, of course, be sure to go check out at ASRC Racing on Twitter or www.asrcracing.com. The only requirements to join are to be a clean and respectful driver. And considering we're only 2 weeks into the season and there are a total of 4 drop weeks, there is still plenty of time to get in here and leave your mark on the championship. That said, qualifying is just about done here tonight, so how about we go down trackside and take a quick look at our starting lineup, presented by the Majors Garage and Sim Racer Hub. Starting out on the pole here tonight in that number 9 machine is going to be Anthony Nadell out of Michigan. Second place going to go to Brad Ringer in the number 4, sporting a brand new paint scheme this week. Third place going to go to League Admin Jason Gardner in the number 93 machine. Fourth place going to go to our 3-time Oval Series champion of Brian Sabelski in the number 85. Fifth place gonna go to Jason Mong in that number 70 machine, followed by Garrett Streets in the 15 to his outside. Seventh gonna go to the 51 of Eric Gahn for Dirtbag Racing, with Corey Logan in the 24 to his outside. Back in the 9th position is going to be Nico Morelli for Morelli Motorsports in the 14 machine, with the other league admin Johnny Bell in the 27 for Lernerville TV, going to be starting off in P number 10. Back in the 11th position, going to be the number 3 of Bill Watkins, and then finally rounding out the field, not rounding out the field tonight, is actually Bill Watkins in 12th place. And then finally rounding out the field for the first time in several weeks that we've had to actually use the scroll forward button on our UI. Starting back in 13th is Mr. Dave Sierrick in the number 56 machine. So that is your starting lineup. 13 cars here on the docket tonight. 101 laps up for grabs around this 0.75 mile or 1.2 kilometer long speedway here in Lakeland, Florida. Heading down the backstretch now. bit of a longer track on our schedule, and actually continuing a bit of a theme that we had from last week at the Thompson Speedway. Tracks with long straightaways and pretty narrow corners, and it's going to be another track like this next week at the Martinsville Speedway, so going to be putting these cars' tires to the test. That said, the pace car is off, and we are going green flag racing here at the USA International Speedway. Bit of a slow start from Jerry the Flagman, waiting just a bit, thinking about throwing that flag, waiting for them to come all the way to the line, but it is going to come out the inside line, getting a very good start here this evening. Already several cars down multiple positions, and a bit of 3 wide back in the back there. Everyone seems to have sorted it out, but that could have been a scary lap 1 incident. Several drivers still side by side coming out of turn 2 here. Bit of a scrape against the wall for the 24 of Corey Logan. Nico Morelli going to try and make a pass up on the high side here. Not going to work for that number 14 car, however. That said, 3 laps in the books, still side by side, and the 24 goes around of Corey Logan. And our first caution is going to come out here on lap number 3, which actually is the first caution of the entire season here tonight for the spin of that number 24 driver. Let's see if we can't go back and take a better look at what happened to that orange and green number 24 entry. Just a little bit too much brake going into the corner was all it took to send that number 24 late model around. Cold tires can be very tricky in this car, so it was bound to happen sooner or later. That said, how about we ride on board with the driver of the number 24 here? Heading down the front stretch into turn 1, you can hear them lift off, use a little bit of brake, and it was just enough to send that late model stock car around. That said, speaking of drivers in pit lane, Johnny Bell looks like he just went in for a little bit of a splash and dash in that number 27 machine. Gonna see if he can't short pit the entire field in that number 27. Johnny Bell is a driver that we have known to make some rather unorthodox pit strategies in this league, and he's actually coming back down again here, probably wanting to pick up some more fuel, not thinking he got enough, and Dave Sierrick also going to come in with him. These 2 drivers seeing if they can't outsmart the field with their pit strategies here. The fuel limits in these late model cars are limited to 40% of the maximum, so on some of the larger tracks on the schedule like this, fuel is going to be an issue, though it is not something that will happen on every track. We decided on 40% last season because Oxford Plains was on the schedule, and the idea was have a low enough fuel limit to make fuel be a actual part of the strategy, but not have too little fuel to require pitting at Oxford Plains, just because the pit lane at Oxford Plains is really awkward and cumbersome and inconvenient. That said, we have stacked them back up 2 by 2. Anthony Nadell still our race leader, but Jason Gardner in that number 93 is actually going to be scored in second place here. So, 7 laps now in the books. We're going to see if we can't try this one again. The iRacing.com pace car is back down into the safety of pit lane, and we are going green yet again here in Lakeland. Much better start by the outside line this time. Jason Gardner actually managing to stay side by side with Nadell through the corner. A very significantly better start by the outside line. Jason might actually manage to clear Nadell, and he does. Jason Gardner going to be scored as the leader this time by. Drivers fanning out a bit further back in the field, but everyone does seem to keep their cars pointed straight here. Maybe a little bit of trouble back in the back. Corey Logan spun around yet again. We will have to see if they'll be able to get that number 24 late model going again before the leaders come back by. It looks like there's not going to be a caution for that spin, but still drivers side by side and all over each other through these corners, so still plenty of potential for another caution to come out here. Currently looking at the battle for 5th place between the 51 of Eric Gahn, the 14 of Nico Morelli, and the 15 of Garrett Streets. Starting to get themselves a little bit better sorted out here, but still drivers all over the place around this racetrack. 2x2 yet again up in the front, and the caution flag is out for... It's saying for Bill Watkins, but Bill Watkins is already back in the pit. Let's see if we can't figure out what brought out this caution. The number 3 car is going to slide a little bit, but... Oh, and there we go. The number 3 sliding around there of Bill Watkins in that A&W paint scheme. Let's see if we can't get maybe a cam from our iRacing.com chopper here. Looking on board with that number 3 car sponsored by A&W and Hooters. Because what more do you need than Hooters and root beer? Very unfortunate for the driver of that number 3 car. Going to bring out our second caution of the evening here tonight. Johnny Bell back down on pit lane yet again. Maybe still not confident on his fuel levels. Currently scored last place in the field, and he was last place in the last caution as well, so he might just be trying to take a little bit of a splash every caution lap to keep himself from going a lap down, but to make sure that he is really comfortable on his fuel. You can see that 27 machine actually going to be going back into pit lane yet again. That looks like that is exactly what his strategy is, just splash and dash every caution lap to put as much fuel in that late model stock car without going a lap down. So definitely going to have to keep an eye on that number 27 car and see if he manages to make this strategy work out for him. It's been definitely a bit of a mixed bag for that Lernerville TV entry. He's always been trying just absolutely absurd fuel strategies, and sometimes he comes up short, but other times he's actually managed to get a second place finish. So definitely a mixed bag out of that 27, but always one that knows how to subvert our expectations, race fans. That said, the lights are out on the iRacing.com pace car, so we are going to line them back up 2 by 2. Gonna be 16 laps in the books when we go green flag racing here again. So definitely not what a lot of these drivers were planning to go into here tonight. A whole lot of race is left up for grabs. Plenty of times for truly anything potentially to happen to these late model stock car drivers. That said, the iRacing.com pace car is off. We're going to try this again for our 3rd time this evening. Green flag is out. A bit of an odd restart there, but I'm not a league admin, so I'm not going to comment on the... Oh, trouble for Brad Ringer up in the wall. Yeah, I'm not going to comment on what happened on that restart, but I saw something that seemed a little bit odd to me. Now Jason Gardner going to be the one up in the wall just a little bit off of turn 3 there, side by side through turns 1 and 2. Anthony Nadell back to our race lead. All of these drivers here under a blanket. Seems like every little bit of the track is being used here. Eric Gahn trying to see which lane he likes more here, and even trying to even consider pushing it 3 wide, but he backed out of it. Bit of a wiggle for Brad Ringer as he loses more spots there. You can see he does have a bit of right front damage on that number 4 entry, so he could be having a bit of handling issues going through these corners. Bit of a big wiggle for Eric Gahn there as well. Might have been a little bit of a nudge from the 15 of Streets, but he does manage to keep it going. All the drivers around the speedway fairly evenly spread apart now. Currently looking at the closest battle, which is back for the 8th position between Brad Ringer and Jason Mong. Side by side down the front stretch, Ringer actually is going to be scored as ahead of this little pack. Another big wiggle for Ringer. Definitely having a bit of handling issues on that number 4 entry. Currently his best bet probably is just going to be to try and hold on to it until another caution comes out and see if he can't get a little bit of repairs done on that car, because he is sliding all over the place, race fans. Still currently the closest battle on the speedway, though, is between Ringer and other drivers. Ringer getting down onto the apron. He does manage to save that number 4 car despite that. That was a very big slide, but he managed to keep it pointed forward at the cost of several positions, but that is going to save from there being a 3rd caution. A little bit further up in the field, Sabelski and Morelli are battling it out almost side by side, less than 0.2 of a second between both of them. That said, a whole second of difference between Sabelski and Nadell, so Nadell having a bit of a pretty comfortable lead now that these two drivers are battling it out for position. Officially 24 laps in the books now. Almost a quarter of the way through this race, but still a long way to go for these drivers. Bit of a battle going on back here in the back between Johnny Bell and Brad Ringer. Johnny still looking to try and make that fuel strategy play out for him. Currently, he is one of only 2 drivers on the speedway that have actually pitted this race. So Johnny might have a bit of a slower car right now simply because there is more fuel in it than everyone else on the speedway, but when we get into the late ends of this race, if green flag pit stops are something that's going to happen, Bell might be at a massive advantage over these other drivers, so we will have to see later on in this race if Bell can make this work. Further up in the field, currently looking at the battle between Streets and Eric Gahn. Eric gonna get a bit of a bump and run. That was actually pretty expertly done by the number 15. Wiggled that 51 just enough to push him up the racetrack without spinning him out, and that's going to pretty decidedly give him the position. So now up into the 5th spot, he can start setting his eyes on Jason Gardner. Corey Logan in that number 24 having a little bit of a connection issue, it looks like. Currently battling it out with Bell a little bit, as Brad Ringer and Jacob Houston also battling out. Houston, a rookie here in the ASRC Oval Series, making his debut start in that red and blue number 11 machine, and he's actually putting up pretty good of a fight here tonight, race fans. Of course, I say that and now he starts falling back positions. I apologize, Houston, for jinxing you. It is a little bit of the broadcaster's curse, but even then, he still is up 2 positions from where he qualified, so all in all, a net positive for the driver of that number 11 machine. Further up in the front, Streets is catching back up to Eric Gahn, so it looks like Streets had a bit of difficulty and Gahn managed to get back around him, so Streets looking to try and execute that pass yet again on that number 51 machine, see if he can't maybe give him another little bit of a love tap to get around him. That said, still a bit of a gap between the two of them, so he does have to actually catch up to the 51 if he wants to try and make a move. Very equally spaced as well as those two drivers is Morelli and Gardner. Currently looking at the number 14 of Nico Morelli. Nico, I believe, got his very first podium since we switched to the late model stock car last race, and currently has his sights set on getting another podium here tonight, but he does have some pretty stiff competition behind him in that number 93 of Jason Gardner. And Jason, of course, rocking the Me paint scheme from Talladega Nights. Talladega, of course, not a track that these late model stock cars would ever think about attending, but always good to reference the greater world of motorsports in your paint schemes. Currently actually looking at the closest battle on the speedway, Gardner is catching Morelli every single lap, closing that distance just a little bit. Last time by, Morelli did set a slower lap time than Gardner, so there is a very real chance that in the next couple of laps, Gardner will be making the move on Morelli. Bit of trouble for Brad Ringer. Brad up in the wall. Actually Mong was up in the wall, slowing him down pretty heavily, going to allow Ringer to make the pass back. Ringer down 5 positions from where he started in that number 4 machine, so definitely a lot of ground to make up, but despite the damage on his right front, he is very much still in this race. A bit further back, a bit of a battle starting to brew between Houston, Bell, and Sierrick. This battle currently for the 10th, 11th, and 12th positions, so pretty far back on the speedway, but it is one of the closest battles on the track right now. Bell currently trying to see if he can't make the high line work around that number 11 machine, and he was making a bit of ground there, but he did have to back out to stop himself from making contact with the wall. Bell certainly the only driver on his fuel strategy along with Sierrick, but Sierrick had a much shorter amount of time in pits from Bell, which makes me think that Sierrick could potentially not have enough fuel to make it to the end. And trouble for Bell, big impact into the outside wall there. Drove it a bit too hard off the corner, and that's going to put a pretty nasty dent in the right front of that Lernerville TV entry. Put maybe a bit of a wrench in Bell's fuel strategy. We will have to see if the damage to that car is going to impact his top speed and maybe throw him off his game. Sure enough, up in the front, Streets is caught back up to Gone, so we might be seeing another one of those little love taps coming out of that number 15 to yet again trying to get back up into the top 5 here tonight. Streets looking down to the inside, thinking, no, maybe not. There was a bit of contemplation about trying to make the move in that corner, but he did decide to back out of it. Currently the closest battle on the speedway for the 5th position between the 51 and the 15. These two drivers often seen very close to each other on the speedway, very similar in pace, and it's only fitting that their numbers be opposite of one another's. That said, Gone is going to move up the speedway a little bit, and that's going to allow Streets to get back into the top 5. Still a bit of time. Oh, trouble. Someone up into the outside wall. That was Nico Morelli. Jason Gardner going to get around him as Nico gets up into the outside wall. And now Nico has to worry about the 15 of Streets right on his bumper. Definitely not what that number 14 driver wanted to see, but sometimes that's just how it goes. A little scrape against the wall can kill all of your momentum around this speedway. And sure enough, the 15 is going to dive it down low, and he is going to make the pass off the corner. Streets is going to be scored as our fourth place driver that time by. Morelli now having to deal with pressure from Gone just behind him as well. Not going to have any room to go down to the low line, so if Morelli doesn't hold on to his position here, he might be put in a bit of a rough spot. Currently side by side. Gone looking to try and to get around here, and Gone is going to make it happen. That said, we have a driver down on pit lane. Mr. Brad Ringer going to come and try and take his fuel stop now. The first driver to have done a green flag pit stop this race. Bit of an early pit as well. It might just work out for him. We will have to see. Currently looking at our race leader of Anthony Nadell coming up on Ringer, Sierrick, and Bell all battling for position, so this lap traffic might make things a bit difficult for that number 9 car to navigate through, and that could potentially allow Sabelski to catch up a little bit of that 4-second deficit he has. Sierrick going to move up the speedway and allow the leader by, so Sierrick the first driver to go a lap down without pit stops. Bell going to go up high as well to allow that 9 car by, and that leaves just the 11 of Houston trying his best to stay back on the lead lap. Houston going to go up high as well and let the leader by. And Nadell has successfully navigated that traffic and also allowed Johnny Bell to take this lead of the little pack that is developed back here. Side by side through the corner, contact between Houston and Sierrick. Houston's going to get shoved up the racetrack as Sierrick got a little loose through the corner and had the rear end of the car snap into the 11. Houston going to dive it back down low and potentially make the pass this time by. He's going to back out of the corner a little bit, side by side into turn 3. Sure enough, he's going to make the pass work for him, so that's now going to put Sierrick back into the 11th position unless something happens that in a bit of a pretty major fashion here. I could be mistaken, but it looks like the 11 car actually has slowed down a bit and almost made contact with Sierrick. Sierrick got up into the outside wall. Bit of trouble for that driver. Speaking of drivers, Brian Sabelski will be the next driver to come down pit lane here on lap 53, so the fuel window is definitely officially open now. That's going to put Jason Gardner up into the 2nd position in that number 93 ME paint scheme. Battle is all around the speedway now. Nico Morelli trying to look and get his way back around Eric Gone. Nico having lost a bit of time with an outside wall contact coming out of turn 2. Now seeing if he can't try and make some of these spots back. He does seem to have pretty good corner entry, but he's just having to back out on corner exit. As you can see, Gone having a bit of a connection issue here. I would imagine not a very pleasant sight for that number 14 trying to overtake a car that you can only sometimes see. Back in the back, the battle is still happening between Houston and Sierrick. Currently the closest battle on the speedway, less than 0.2 of a second between both of these drivers. It does look like Houston's going to try and get the car down low, but not any luck coming out of that corner. And the 56 is starting to spin. He saves it, but Houston now going to be the leader of this battle. The 56 getting very loose through the corner there. And just behind him, the 93 of Jason Gardner pitting in, and lead lap cars of the 15 coming through there. 56 going to go back up high and let the leaders by, but definitely a very scary situation there. Jason Gardner going to be the next driver to pit in as these four cars all battle it out. These cars actually, none of them are really battling for position here. They're all pretty evenly spread out, and almost trouble for the 11 car, and very nearly made contact with the 15. The 15's gonna try and dive it down in there, make contact with the rear end of the 11 and back out of the corner. Street's trying to do everything in his power to get around Houston. Houston finally going to give up the position to Streets, which is also going to allow Sierrick back by. The drama really will never end between these two late model stock cars, battling it out for what is effectively last place, but putting on some of the most intense battling that we have had all race. And trouble for the 56 up into the outside wall yet again. Very heavy damage on that right front tire now. You can see it sticking out just a bit. Definitely not supposed to be doing that, but what can you do sometimes? Side by side down through the front straight. Another hard impact into the wall for that 56. Definitely starting to get some major handling issues on that good wrench entry. Still doing everything in his power to try and battle with Houston. Houston's going to come down low, nearly push it 3 wide with Sabelski. Mind you, these are lead lap cars currently overtaking the 11 and the 56, and they are still going at it with everything they have to throw at each other, race fans. Things have settled down a little bit now between these two drivers, but that could change at any moment. Both Sierrick and Houston showing a whole lot of tenacity here, that's for sure. And the 11's into the wall. And into the inside wall as well. Heavy damage on the 11 there, and it looks like he's going to finally bring it down into pit lane, get some fuel, and maybe have a bit of that damage taken care of, because that was a fairly nasty hit here tonight. Currently being scored as our race leader is actually the 51 of Eric Gahn, one of only 2 drivers on the speedway that have still not pit in for fuel, the other being the 70 of Jason Mong. Once all of that cycles through, Johnny Bell technically will be our race leader. So it does look like that fuel strategy is paying out for Johnny Bell. We will just have to see if he has enough fuel to make it to the end. Officially 2/3 of the way through this race, so still a bit of time for drivers to try and make things happen here, but the clock is ticking. A little bit further back, looking back at Dave Sierra, currently still the closest battle on the speedway, but he is rapidly losing time in that 56. Still a lot of damage on that late model stock. Garrett Street's going to make the pass on him with no resistance whatsoever. Johnny Bell, oh, trouble. That 4 car is around. That's going to be Brad Ringer, bringing out our 3rd caution of the evening. And just like that, race fans, there might be a lot of drivers reconsidering their fuel strategies. Currently looking at that bright yellow number 4 car out of Speedway, Indiana. Just gonna lose the rear end on corner entry or lock down the brakes, but it was just too far gone to stop that number 4 car from going around. Currently heading down the backstretch, a little bit of contact with the wall that might have upset the car just enough to get it going around. So, caution number 3 here at the 2/3 of the way mark through the speedway. You can see several drivers coming down to pit lane, so a couple of drivers maybe double checking their fuel strategy, making sure that they have everything up to scratch or potentially getting damage repaired. You can actually see Johnny Bell and Dave Sierrick both took tires there. It looks like Jason Mong, however, getting a bit of damage repaired, so definitely going to be shaking things up late in this race fans. Brad Ringer also coming down to the pits, as well as Corey Logan. Both these drivers might also end up taking tires. I would not be surprised because everyone has officially come in for fuel already. That said, we don't see, oh, yep, sure enough, right side tires for gone. And it's going to look like maybe left side tires for Logan. I'm not too sure on that one, but I'm pretty sure I saw the left side of that number 24 car get jacked up. So we will have to see how these differing strategies work out for these late model drivers. Currently, Anthony Nadell being scored as our race leader yet again. That said, currently 2 cars a lap down are between the leader and the pace car. They should get waved around next time by. That is the 11 of Houston and the 14 of Morelli. Morelli actually is on the lead lap, so he definitely should be getting waved around the pace car here. Sure enough, there he goes. Morelli going to get the wave around. He is supposed to be scored on the lead lap here, so that is where he's supposed to be, and it does look like the 11 is also going to get a wave around as well. So, Anthony Nadell now in his correct position of the official race leader. Pace car lights gonna go off on that iRacing.com Ford Mustang, so 74 laps to go when we go green flag racing again, and things have definitely been shaken up this race. As they run, gonna be Nadell, Gardner, Sabelski, Bell, and Mong making up your top 5, with Gahn, Streets, and Morelli rounding out the last of the cars on the lead lap. So the first 8 cars you see here are the cars that are still battling it out for the lead, but sure enough, if there are more cautions, then Logan and Sierra could get waved around. But green flag back out again. Let's see what these late model drivers have to offer in these final 25 laps. And trouble. Logan is around. And for the second time tonight, Logan has been spun and there has not been a caution. Lap 75 in the books now. Drivers coming down into turn 1. Logan does have that car going yet again, so no caution is going to come out. Incredibly unfortunate for the driver of that number 24 machine. Currently Gardner and Sabelski making up second and third place respectively. Gonna have to see if both these drivers decide to work together to try and catch Nadell, or if they're going to battle out for their respective podium spots, because that could, in theory, slow them both up. And sure enough, Johnny Bell also back in the 4th position on those brand new 2 right side tires. Bell on a completely different strategy from everyone else, so we will have to see if he manages to make that work for him, but Gon is going to go down low and get around him, so cards maybe not playing out the way that Bell was planning for them to, especially as Mong manages to get around the 27 car as well. Nico Morelli also looking to try and make the pass here. Almost seeming it's like he was thinking about making it 3 wide, but he backed out of that. Definitely not something he wants to do in that 14 machine. But if the opportunity presents itself, that might be exactly what happens. Side by side down the front stretch, currently looking at the closest battle on the speedway. Morelli trying to get around the 27 of Bell, but he just can't get the run off the corner because the 70's in front of him. And Bell into the outside wall. That is going to guarantee the pass happens. Now nothing is between him and the lap cars except for Street. Street's trying his best to get around the 27, sending it down low, but maybe backing out of it just a little bit. Not as comfortable as he would have liked to be on that pass, but he is going to do it again here, and to no avail. Very interesting lines being taken with 21 laps to go. Everyone's trying to see if they can't figure something out in the last few minutes of this race to try and squeak out another position or two, because ultimately every position counts, and the 15 is going to give a bit of a bump to the 27, and that's going to give him the position. Just a bit of a bump and run for Streets, and that is going to move him up to the 7th position. Johnny Bell now starting to get passed by lapped cars. Disregard that, they actually both backed out there. Sierra and Houston both also battling it out as well, though these cars are not on the same lap as each other, so we will have to see if these two continue to put on the amazing show that they put on earlier in this race. Looking back now at the 85 and the 93, Gardner and Sabelski in 2nd and 3rd positions, both losing a lot of time to our race leaders, so with 18 to go, they might need another caution to try and hope and catch them. Brian Sabelski, of course, won last week's race and also 3-time champion here in the series. Streams at twitch.tv/Nihon Tiger. Of course, being where the NTO paint schemes comes from, a parody of a NWO paint scheme. Sabelski actually tells me that he has gotten more wins in this NTO paint scheme than the real-life NWO paint scheme ever got in real-life racing. So, bit of a props to that number 85 driver rocking the black and white parody paint scheme, and seems to be working out for him because he is up in the podium position here tonight. Currently looking on board with our number 9 machine. That is 15 laps to go this time by, and he does not have a whole lot that he needs to be worrying about here tonight. Currently looking on board with the number 9, plenty of room between himself and Gardner and Sabelski, as well as a lapped car of Logan between himself and the 93 and 85, so plenty of time for this driver to just keep it smooth, not stress himself out too much, and cruise his way to victory lane. But you never know when another caution might come out. We've had plenty of surprise finishes, including a couple where cautions came out with quite literally 2 laps to go. That said, 13 still left in the books here tonight. Gardner and Sabelski duking it out for the podium positions. Currently the closest battle on the speedway. Not too far behind as well is the 51 of Gone, who is also very much in this battle. So 3 drivers all within about 4/10 of a second of each other, trying to get their way into the podium and, of course, secure as many points as they can early going into this championship. There are 4 drop weeks, of course, so if drivers miss a race or just have a bad finish, it's not going to be the end of the world. But even with that bit of fallback to use in an emergency, drivers still, of course, want to get as many points as they can every single race. Corey Logan going to go up high and let our lead lap cars by. Currently 10 laps to go here tonight, and Zabelski is closing in on Gardner. That time by Zabelski was just a little bit faster, so plenty of potential for a pass to happen right here. Gone, however, falling back from these drivers a little bit. Streets also catching up to Morelli and putting a lot of pressure on him from behind. Gonna dive it down low. Not going to be enough to make the pass, however, but still inching closer and closer. Gonna dive it down low here yet again. The 14's gonna slide through the corner a little bit. Now side by side with 8 laps to go, Streets and Morelli battling for the 6th place position. Streets does look like he is going to make the pass on Morelli, but Morelli's still in this. Just has to try and get that 14 back down onto the preferred line, and he might just be able to make the pass back. But with 7 laps to go, he is running out of time here, race fans. And a little bit of a scrape against the wall for Morelli. That is going to make him lose about 1/10 of a second. Definitely making things difficult for that Justin Wilson Memorial entry. Jason Gardner also getting a bit of a gap from Zabelski. Zabelski might have scraped the wall as well, because the gap went from about 2/10 of a second to almost half of a second now. Big high five up in the air from our flag man. It's just about to be over with, race fans. Drivers gonna be looking to try and pull out the final tricks they have up their sleeves, but it could be too little too late. Oh, trouble. Morelli made a massive catch up to Streets, and he very nearly made the pass there. Streets having a bit of difficulty off the corner as well. These 2 drivers currently the closest battle on the speedway. I'm really not sure what happened to Streets and Morelli there, but there was almost a full second of time between these 2 drivers that was suddenly narrowed down to almost nothing. 3 laps to go, and it looks like Streets is sailing away from Morelli. That's going to bring us back to our other closest battle on the speedway between Gardner and Zabelski. Roughly half a second between these 2 cars, 2 laps to go now. Zabelski has a lot of ground to make up in these next 2 laps if he wants to make this happen. And the gap has increased by another 1/10 of a second, so unless something major happens to Gardner here, I think Gardner has the position. White flag up in the air one more time around the speedway. Bit of a wobble from our race leader, but still plenty of time between himself and Gardner and Zabelski. Coming around out of 4, and sure enough, Anthony Nadell is gonna be our winner here at the USA International Speedway. Led the most laps here tonight, and he managed to get that number 9 late model stock car down into victory lane for his first ever win. with the ASRC Oval Series. Last season, he had multiple second place finishes, so tonight is going to be his first win. We'll give him a minute to burn it down, and then we will see if we can't call up our drivers and get a bit of thoughts after that whole heck of a race. Alrighty, there we go. Gonna start this off with our third place finisher of Mr. Brian Sabelski. Here you are, yet again, maybe
Hello.
not the win you were trying for, but you're still here on the podium, which is still a very solid start to the season.
Yeah, a little bummed. Had a restart there. I don't know if I ended up pinching Brad up in the wall or anything like that. I thought I left room, but maybe I didn't leave enough room for him on the outside. He just fell off like a rock after that, and I mean, I feel bad about.
I mean, ultimately, it is short track racing. Contact is going to happen one way or another, and we did have our first cautions of the season here tonight, so did those shake up the strategy you were trying to work with here tonight at all? Uh-oh. Race fans, we might have lost Brian. um, we'll give him just a second, and might be having some technical issues over there.
I'm here.
Oh, there
Hello.
you go. Hello.
It's perfectly fine on my end. I don't know what's
I
on
don't
there.
know. Maybe they just gave you a bad radio. Gosh darn race officials trying
Yeah,
to
it
sabotage
happens.
you.
Yeah. I mean, I was just trying to stay ahead of Jason the whole race. Yeah, the pit's in front of me, and yeah, just trying to chase him down after that. So is what it is.
Yeah, still a third place finish. Not too shabby. That said,
No,
the red carpet is out for you, so who'd you like to thank on the side of that 85 machine for getting you onto the podium?
just thanks Jason for hosting the series, the ASRC for putting everything on, and everyone who's hanging out here watching, having a good time.
Yeah, well,
Yep.
thanks for coming out, and I look forward to seeing you next week.
See you.
Jason, you got on the podium in your own series. Aren't we supposed to, like, have a conflict of interest here or something?
Not necessarily, because I mean, just because I'm putting a race on doesn't mean that there are people out there who can go faster than me.
Fair enough. Just gotta make sure that y'all admin folks aren't giving yourselves extra fuel or something. I'm just kidding though. You put on a very good show tonight and you got the very funny paint scheme on the podium. How are you feeling after that?
After last week, I'm actually feeling pretty good. I'll take a second any day, especially after the horrible start to the season last week.
Yeah, but hey, drop weeks exist for a reason, so as far as I'm aware, you can forget last week ever happened. We can say this is the start to your season, and no one will bat an eye.
Yeah, yeah, true. But at the same time, you don't want to have too many bad weeks. Like I rather like just because if I throw this one away, that means I really only got 3 drop weeks to save for the rest of the season.
Yeah, that's true. We do still have a long road ahead of us. You got any special plans for some of these tracks coming up later on in the season?
Not necessarily. I tried something a little different on the setup today. It actually seemed to work pretty good. Didn't make me faster, but it kept me from It actually made the car keep from plowing, especially when right at its limit.
Well, it certainly seemed to work out for you, but that said, who would you like to thank for getting that number 93 here on the podium?
I like to thank Johnny for putting on the ASRC series. For that, we wouldn't even have the Oval Series to even speak of. And I actually like to thank everybody who came out today and participated. And if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't even be having this series.
Yeah, that's true, and you all put on a heck of a show here tonight. There was even exciting battling all the way back into 12th, so everyone put on a great run to here tonight, and it's always a blast to see all of y'all come out every week.
Yes, sir. And I'm looking forward to next week.
Looking forward to having you. And finally, Mr. Race Winner himself, you've finally broken the curse of getting every podium position you physically could except for first place. How are you feeling?
Thanks. I'm feeling pretty good. It's nice to get the win. I've been feeling pretty sick the last week or so, and so this will help make me feel a little bit better to end up in victory lane after coming up so close a bunch of times.
Yeah, definitely a good start to your season. It's good to hear you are feeling a little bit better. Always sucks to be sick, but I suppose what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, or something to that effect, because somehow getting sick has gotten you into victory lane.
Yeah, the race didn't quite play out the way I was hoping. I was hoping it was going to run green the whole way, and then we'd just be able to pit and get fuel in a reasonable fashion. And then, the cautions at the beginning kind of made me nervous that some guys were going to be able to stretch fuel. I guess they weren't quite able to, as they all pitted at the last caution. And then, when that came out, that wasn't really what I was looking for either, because that brought the guys back up to Jason and Brian back up to my back bumper, and I knew they were going to give me a hard time on the restart. So definitely glad to get a good start there and be able to pull away and get the win.
Yeah, sure enough, you put on a heck of a run here tonight, and if there's one thing short track racing is good at, it's going against how you were hoping it would. So, despite the circumstances, I'd say you did pretty dang good here tonight. But that said, the red carpet is yours, Mr. Winner. who would you like to thank on the number 9 entry over here?
I'd like to thank the people who put the series on, and you for doing the broadcast, and Justin at JKR for some setup advice this week. This is not my favorite track by a long shot, and I needed some tips on what to maybe look at to change to make the car faster. So that's, I guess, who I'd like to thank.
Good deal. I hope that the reason you dislike the track is for some sort of reason other than its layout, because next week we're going to be heading to the Martinsville Speedway for even longer straights and narrower corners. Aren't you excited?
Well, Martinsville is a whole different track because it's so narrow and you got to stop. Whereas USA you carry so much more speed through the corner. Martinsville you pretty much just stop, turn, go. It's pretty straightforward short track, so I'll be more comfortable there, I think.
Fair enough. Well, I look forward to seeing you out there next week, and maybe you'll be able to pick up another win here with the league.
All right, yeah, we'll see. I'll definitely do my best. So have a good night.
You too. You heard it there first, race fans. Our top 3 finishers, Anthony Nadell, Jason Gardner, and Brian Sabelski, going to be rounding out your top 3 here tonight. Taking a quick look at the rest of our field. Back in 4th place, going to be the 51 of Eric Gahn for Dirtbag Racing. 5th place, going to go to the 70 of Jason Mong. 6th place back to the 15 of Garrett Streets, followed by Nico Morelli in that 14 back in 7th. 8th going to go to Johnny Bell in the 27 Lernerville TV entry. 9th going to go to Mr. Dave Sierra, making his first start this season. 10th going to go to that 24 entry of Corey Logan. 11th going to go to Jacob Houston in the number 11 machine. 12th place going to go to Brad Ringer in the black and yellow number 4, rocking that new paint scheme here tonight. And finally, rounding out our field here tonight, back in the 13th position is going to be Bill Watkins in the number 3 machine. That said, that's all we've got for y'all here tonight from the USA International Speedway. Next week we will be going to one of the most historic short tracks on the iRacing.com platform, a rather stark contrast to this one. So next week, 10 p.m. Eastern, gonna be 101 laps at the Martinsville Speedway for round 3 of season 8. So thank you all for coming out, race fans, and I will see you all next time. Have a good evening.